Hi there. Welcome to this day in history for October 3rd. Every October 3rd, I think of my Uncle Lanny, whose birthday was on this day. I always found him to be pleasant with a quirky sense of humor. I could tell you some Uncle Lanny stories, but I'm not going to do that right now. What a guy, Uncle Lanny. I miss him. Happy birthday, Uncle Lanny. So let's get started. 1800. This is the birthday of George Bancroft, historian known as the father of American history for his 10-volume history of the United States. 1849, Edgar Allan Poe was seen in public for the last time. The Baltimore, Maryland-based American poet and author, best known for his poem The Raven, was found sick and delirious on the streets and taken to Washington College Hospital, where he died a few days later. He was 40 years old at the time of his death. 1863, President Lincoln proclaims official Thanksgiving holiday. On October 3, 1863, expressing gratitude for a pivotal Union Army victory at Gettysburg, President Abraham Lincoln announced that the nation would celebrate an official Thanksgiving holiday on November 26, 1863. The holiday has been celebrated annually since then. 1895, The Red Badge of Courage is published. On October 3, 1895, The Red Badge of Courage by Stephen Crane was published in book form. The story of a young man's experience of battle was the first American novel to portray the Civil War from an ordinary soldier's point of view. The tale originally appeared as a serial published by a newspaper syndicate. 1916, birthday of James Herriot, Yorkshire veterinarian and author of All Creatures Great and Small. He was born in Sunderland, County Durham, died in 1995. On October 3, 1917, 6 months after the United States declared war on Germany and began its participation in the First World War, the U.S. Congress passed the War Revenue Act, increasing income taxes to unprecedented levels in order to raise more money for the war effort. The 16th Amendment, which gave Congress the power to levy an income tax, became part of the Constitution in 1913. In October of that year, a new income tax law introduced a graduated tax system with rates starting at 1% and rising to 7% for taxpayers with income above $500,000. Though less than 1% of the population paid income tax at the time, the amendment marked an important shift, as before most citizens had carried on their economic affairs without government knowledge. In an attempt to assuage fears of excessive government intervention into private financial affairs, Congress added a clause in 1916 requiring that all information from tax returns be kept confidential. 1931, the comic strip Dick Tracy first appears in the New York News. 1932, Iraq wins independence. With the admission of Iraq into the League of Nations, Britain terminates its mandates over the Arab nation, making Iraq independent after 17 years of British rule and centuries of Ottoman rule. In 1932, Iraq gained independence from the United Kingdom. The West Asian country came under British control in 1920 after the end of the First World War. After taking control of the country, the British installed the deposed Syrian king Faisal I as the king of Iraq. In 1938, Eddie Cochran, American rock vocalist and guitarist, was born in Oklahoma City. He died in 1960. In 1941, the Maltese Falcon, starring Humphrey Bogart as Detective Sam Spade, opened. In 1941, Chubby Checker, American singer and songwriter, was born in Spring Gully, South Carolina. On October 3, 1942, German rocket scientist Werner von Braun's brainchild, the V-2 missile, was fired successfully from an island off Germany's Baltic coast. It traveled 118 miles and proved extraordinarily deadly in the war. It was the precursor to the intercontinental ballistic missiles of the post-war era. 1951, the shot heard round the world. A miraculous home run won the pennant for the New York Giants. On October 3, 1951, third baseman Bobby Thompson hit a one-out, three-run home run in the bottom of the ninth to win the National League pennant for the New York Giants. Thompson's homer wrapped up an amazing come-from-behind run for the Giants and knocked the Brooklyn Dodgers, the Giants' hated interborough rivals, out of their spot in the World Series. The Giants went on to lose the series to the Yankees, but Thompson's miraculous homer remains one of the most memorable moments in sports history. The Giants weren't even supposed to be in the pennant race. They were 13 and a half games behind the legendary Dodgers by the middle of August, and everyone thought they were finished. But then they won 16 games in a row. By October, they'd won 37 of their last 44 games and had tied Brooklyn for the lead. It was time for a playoff, the first ever in the National League. New York won the first game. In the second, the Dodgers crushed them 10-0. The third game, before 34,320 people at the Polo Grounds in Washington Heights, was crucial, and by the ninth inning, it seemed like a lost cause. The Dodgers were winning 4-1. People in the stands were gathering their belongings and heading for the subway. That fat lady hadn't sung yet, people. Sit back down. But then the Giants came to life. Al Mark and Don Mueller hit respectable singles to right field, and then after Monty Irvin pop-up, Whitey Lockman doubled up to left and sent Dark safely home. Now the score was 4-2, with runners on second and third. While Bobby Thomson waited to bat, the Dodgers sent in relief pitcher Ralph Branca. Thomson was a reliable hitter, and since first base was open and the new rookie Willie Mays waited on deck, many thought Branca would throw a deliberate walk. He didn't. The first pitch was called strike. Thomson drilled the second into the left field stands. "The Giants win the pennant," radio announcer Russ Hodges howled. "The Giants win the pennant, the Giants win the pennant," he kept screaming until he lost his voice. Meanwhile, inside the Polo Grounds, pandemonium reigned. Fans flooded the field. Thompson took curtain call after curtain call. People in Manhattan and Brooklyn made so many phone calls in the half hour after Thompson's homer that the New York telephone nearly lost service in two boroughs. The next day, the momentum continued. The Giants beat the Yankees 5-1 in the first game of the World Series. Then the Yanks came back, winning the next three games and the series. In 1954, the underdog Giants swept the World Series in 4 straight games, thanks in part to Willie Mays' stupendous first game over-the-shoulder catch in center field. But by the end of the 1950s, both the Giants and the Dodgers had moved to California, and an incredible era in New York baseball history was over. I've linked a link in the show notes to the audio for that. It's pretty exciting. 1952, the UK successfully conducts a nuclear weapon, becoming the world's third nuclear power. 1954, Stevie Ray Vaughn, American guitarist and singer, was born in Dallas, Texas. And as many of you know, he died in 1990 in a plane crash. That seems to happen a lot. In 1955, 2 children's television programs and a family sitcom, all destined to become classics, debuted. Captain Kangaroo, Mickey Mouse Club, and The Dick Van Dyke Show. 1967, writer, singer, and folk icon Woodle Guthrie died. Woodrow Wilson Guthrie, whom Bob Dylan would later call the true voice of the American spirit, was a native of Okemah, Oklahoma. He was born in 1912 and had just entered adulthood as America entered the Great Depression. 1969, Gwen Stefani, American singer and songwriter, was born in Fullerton, California. In 1981, a hunger strike by Irish nationalists at the Maze prison in Belfast in Northern Ireland was called off after 7 months and 10 deaths. The first to die was Bobby Sands, the imprisoned Irish Republican Army leader who initiated the protest on March 1, 1981, the 5th anniversary of the British policy of criminalization of Irish political prisoners. In 1990, after 45 years of division, East and West Germany were reunited as one nation. Less than 1 year after the destruction of the Berlin Wall, East and West Germany came together on what is known as Unity Day. Since 1945, when Soviet forces occupied Eastern Germany, and the United States and other Allied forces occupied the western half of the nation at the close of World War II, divided Germany had come to serve as one of the most enduring symbols of the Cold War. In 1955, O.J. Simpson was acquitted of the brutal 1994 double murder of his estranged wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend Ronald Goldman. In 2008, the Emergency Economic Stabilization Act of 2008 authorized the Secretary of the Treasury to purchase distressed assets of financial corporations and supply cash directly to banks to keep them afloat. In 2011, Amanda Knox murder conviction overturned in Italy. In a decision that made international headlines, an Italian appeals court overturned the murder conviction of Amanda Knox, an American exchange student who 2 years earlier had been found guilty in the 2007 murder of her British roommate Meredith Kercher in Perugia, Italy. At the time of her 2009 conviction, Knox, then 22 years old, received a 26-year prison sentence, while her ex-boyfriend, Italian college student Raphael Solicito, who also was convicted in the slaying, was sentenced to 25 years behind bars. The sensational high-profile case raised questions in the United States about the Italian justice system and whether Knox, who always maintained her innocence, was unfairly convicted. And that's going to wrap it up for us today on This Day in History for October 3rd. Thanks for watching. As always, links to my research are included in the show notes, along with the physical address if you'd like to add to my coffee mug collection. Give it a like if you enjoyed this video. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. And feel free to share if you found it entertaining or learned something. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. On October, okay, with the notifications. Oh, okay. Jeez, okay. I guess I haven't edited this material yet. So, okay. All right, let's put that closer to the top of the page, see if you can read it easier. Annie, stop. Somebody's walking a dog, setting off every other dog in the neighborhood. Okay, let's just change that from, and there you go. Somebody's walking their dog, Annie's. So many words. Okay. Well, I guess they got over that, didn't they? The 3rd, October 3rd.